8:21. Call the meeting to order. Start with reading our mission statement. The mission of the County of LCIDA is to stabilize, strengthen, and grow communities through strategic community partnerships, innovative incentive programs, responsible leverage of our financial resources, and thoughtful policy development to advance economic growth and a brighter and more inclusive future for all. Pretty good to read this week. So we'll start, Kaylee sent out the packet and minutes last week, if everyone had a chance to look at it. Are there any questions or corrections? Right. We'll take a motion to accept the minutes. Got it, second. There. Favor. Aye. Motion carries. So we didn't have a reminder, we didn't have a meeting last month, so we got a couple months worth of stuff here. The August and September financials.
Okay, so biggest expense was our audit. But everything else business as usual. Anybody have any questions on that?
That's just the IDA fee,
Just the
that's hot. Yep.
Here's our balance sheet of note, both on this and the profit and loss. We did move more money into the New York class account, and so there is more interest being reported. So that's going to show here, and it will show on the profit and loss. Everything else, business as usual. Does anyone have any questions on that one? And then again, that's the only thing to note here, is the interest income amount, which is higher and will likely be higher. We moved money like a midpoint, so going forward it would be a bit more than that, but this is a 2-month period. And then also of note, Trinity Ave expenses, we are being reimbursed for those, and we are due to have another come in water bill or something very shortly. We are, they know that they did pay that, and we're just waiting for you to send that to them. So, anybody have any questions there?
I just wanted to share that Troy at second place, he had shared just how emotionally awesome it was for us doing what we did. And for his expenses, he was literally in tears. And so was his mother, and it so felt so good. I wanted to lay on that. It was a good decision.
Had similar numbers.
Yeah.
It's just great. Awesome.
You guys, you were almost nicer than we would have been.
Oh my God, we're
Plus,
never had anything nice
Most
to
of you guys on
do.
that's good. I'm excited about that. I hope everybody's on their part in keeping him.
It's important to follow now.
They're doing a great job.
They're doing amazing.
I did check in, I actually did check in with one of the neighbors who had been vocally against the fact they were just brewing there, that they're serving, they're having things. Yeah, he's said it's been great so far.
Then just to Eric's comment, I mean, the past year was still entangled in the transition, right? And we've had those conversations about the accounting firm kept, justifying scamming us for more money because of all the activities going on. And go ahead.
And that's for countries.
Yeah.
No, that's
No.
ours himself.
This is
So if, I did it, and we talked before, and every few years we reevaluated, but this will be the first full year that the IDA has a lot smaller group of activities compared to with the ship and act with Lewis, so we should be looking at and going back to them that there's gonna be a lot less work next year, right? And then looking at that, but last year's was still tied up to the transition, so.
Are we charged on a work basis or just the,
They kind of have a baseline for
okay, I can follow.
for us, sort
Okay.
of, and then because of our increased activity, they were
Yeah.
charging us on top
Got
of that.
Okay,
But I think we could schedule probably a January proactive meeting with them.
We get it in writing.
It got,
I just tell them we need to look at it. Because of the drastic change in activity, I mean, the number of transactions we have now versus what we had 2 years ago is crazy.
I don't understand, do they audit much for this, or is that a different, we don't require?
For National Lewis, for nonprofits, if you bring in more than $1 million, you have to do an audit, but in our bylaws, it says every 2 years. National Lewis.
So we're looking at a potential for both divisions having,
oh yeah, and now CDC has said.
so that's definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and LCD, yeah, CDC is an audit, chamber, never, whatever, an audit.
But. Yeah, I mean, that was a. Not, you know, obviously not a game stopper, but a real consideration if you create another organization. There's another level of admin and oversight, right? But and that's, you know, the IDA fee kept going up and up because we were doing more and more, which wasn't a bad thing, right? A business expenses go up when they're doing more business, it doesn't mean it's counterproductive, right? It's just, but now that should be shifted over.
I would say an audit, the volume of activity shouldn't really affect an audit an awful lot. I mean, you know, well, if that company goes out and audits a school district. You know, what's the fee for that? I mean, the higher activity is pretty minimal. It's messy books that, you know, if things are complicated or they have to make a lot of corrections, that's when they would charge extra. My perspective.
That hasn't been the
Well,
case.
and years back, right, and when, before we had Cheyenne and when we were still new and learning things, yeah, things were not as well done as they are now, so. I don't know if they could buy that a little bit, then also, when if they were to do Natural Lewis, they got the LCDC and the IDA and Natural Lewis. Now they got a package deal where they should go with starting class.
Right.
That's all we're. Yeah, I mean, it's a little complicated because your fiscal years are different, but.
It's, you know. I can't remember the last time we kind of explored other options, but at that time they weren't great, like there wasn't.
Right, we haven't gone out for RFP since 2018, I think, we could definitely do that. You're right, the last time we did it, everybody else was substantially higher because they've done our audit forever, so at least they have a baseline knowledge of what's going on.
But we can negotiate,
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Well, that was, for right or wrong, that's been their justification, I mean, every year we get a clean audit. We've been complimented multiple times by publicly about the way everything is in order and stuff, so. Their comment is if that would be the reason, that's not what they've shared with us, they've given us. Compliments and a good report on the improvements that have been made in cleaning everything up and justified the added expense because of the amount of transactions, so. So I would say that really, you know, if they come back and say that they can't adjust the fee because an audit's an audit, then that's. We have documentation that that's BS. So,
We can put it on our list to schedule a meeting with them. Just to talk about all of the audits, including that Lewis and. Section and audit.
Pretty, do they just take everything and do from start to finish for us, or is there work that can be done ahead of time to make it easier? And I'm just coming from the point of being able to use AI programs where we can do that get something, do most of it, and then we just, because we have to have somebody approve it, correct? Like, we can't do it ourselves.
Right.
So, but how much of the work can we do ourselves? Easily to make it just, it's like a seal of actual approval from a professional agency, just good for fun. I don't know,
So there is a component that they technically prepare our financials.
yeah,
So we could think about bringing that in-house or having NCCPA's do that instead, so that. We can see what NCCPA's would charge
sure.
for that, since they're in all of our books anyway. It's something we can consider.
Something like that, yeah.
Drive the price down for sure.
Any other questions on financials? Oh, sorry.
No worries. Quarter end, we do the loan fund report. And I am thrilled to say that we have gotten 2 occupancy payments from second place, so they are very much with the program now, and that feels really great. I can put that in for us. And I have included their future loans because we build their amortization into this, but there's no payments for those yet. They start in January, so everyone's in good standing. Any questions on that? Okay.
Where does the wall fund stand? And like, no, it's been shifted over to LCDC and we've had. So. I was just, good, well, we've had some conversations regarding that, you know, there was some money, there were some opportunities to make loans if. Cause there was some money sitting there, I wasn't sure if that was still.
Right, so we did approve the loan funds transfer last year around this time. We've worked to be in a place where our loan activity was light enough that it would be an easy transition. The only outstanding loan IDA right now is Circular and Roasters, so we're in a good place. For that side of the loan fund, so that's the county funds, and the idea is that they would all combine in one pot because we satisfied our USDA obligations for the other loan fund. The USDA. There's challenges at the local USDA offices in closing that out. And getting documentation that it closed and it can move. And I'll take a lot of the responsibility for how slow it's been, because every time I go back to them and learn that same all again, I back out and wait for that and then nothing comes. So we're actively working to get that done before 12 months. Candace Randall has the Tuckville Artisan Roasters loan paperwork so that she can make the modifications necessary for that to transfer to LCDC, which is on the agenda to approve as well.
First red part of these.
Pilots approved, they're in
That was a pilot that wasn't wrong.
That was a pilot and sales tax exemption.
Yeah.
Should I give them that?
It
For
flows.
some reason I thought it was one.
But if a business came to, well, now that CDC, but if the business came to Naturally Lewiston. There is money, there will be money.
Yeah, we can transfer the county funded pot today. I would just rather not do that until we can do Central Artisan Roasters all at the same time. Push it all at once, and ideally USDA at the same time, but. Let's see.
Thank you. Any other questions? Financials? Motion to approve, this would be for, as you can see, August 1st to September 30th, sure. Gavin, second, sure, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries, thank you. Alright, so moving on, is there anything? Moving into your update right here there.
We have some approval items. Our January board meeting, just want to get it in the minutes to change it because it would be the day after New Year's. So suggesting January 9th.
That's good with that.
Yeah.
So. Make that move to the second. Thursday, of January, just because of the. Holiday calendar. and everything. We need an official vote on that.
Yeah,
Motion to. Make motion for second by Jessica. All in favor. Aye.
Just curious what our rate, or did we cover it?
It was out there, I didn't really speak to it because it came up at the end.
Yeah, you know, I just wondered if we got like, has it significantly increased or?
No, we're getting more interest now because we moved money into a better account. Better account for this time.
And then was last,
Yeah,
I'm just wondering if the rates had dropped or something. Seeing that at the time, didn't know, like, are they all the same or?
I just was shocked with that number, it was like in 2 months, we got 16,000.
Well, and
What
the
do you guys
amount
wanna
that
do?
Teachers.
they put them out.
Yeah,
I like the ones we got, the naturally Lewis shirts that we have, like, not the nicer ones, they're not shirts,
I
like,
am thinking about swag for you guys.
they look awesome, I wear all of them.
Well, there you go, let's prove it now, ideal paper.
so. Right, so the question wasn't about necessarily. For the amount of money, just if.
It was just the rate,
if
the rate,
they
right?
just agreed to that change.
Don't know the rate, just the money's small.
And we don't need to approve this, I just included it, because again. For awareness.
Alright, okay, so this was. What Cheyenne just referred to in terms of.
Yes, well, but we just wanna get it in the minutes, that the IDA approves the transfer to LCDC for the circular and roasters loan. And do the same thing with the LCDC, that the LCDC approves that transfer in. And that would be effective 12/1.
And just a reminder, because we always run into this. This is not IDA month, because IDA is only month, right? This is all then. Money from other groups that have been administered by the IDA and it's being transferred over to the LCDC.
Like, we can't even, the IDA can't even touch the interest on that. Well, it's very false and accrues interest.
So we have a motion that we just transfer. Or second by Kenzie, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries, thank you.
All right, the IDA board report, won't go through everything, but, just wanna highlight some. Potential incentive applications that we are expecting, that are kind of in the pipeline, still in conversations, one being the Glenfield School redevelopment project. So they have applied to New York State, HCR for their funding. It is up to a $28 million project, which is like crazy to me. But if it happens and they get funding, it'll be a great project for Glenfield. AES Solar, the Krogan Wilma project, which I am in conversations with AES and starting a conversation with Jefferson County IDA on that potential pilot. And the Deer River Lake, we are expecting that application to come in, but we haven't yet received it. Both of those will include the host community agreement, with the Lewis County Development Corporation.
There is conversation with AES, from the town of Krogan, a very similar. Setup to our the LCDC's, host community agreement for community development projects. So that would be an interesting conversation. To see what they have laid out, Tom Calamus has been really involved in that. he's got a good head on his shoulder, so it'll be a good conversation to have.
Nancy mentioned that their pilot, has closed and they are moving forward, working on their project. Any other questions? Some of the other stuff in the report we'll get to later in the agenda.
Street is if one more parcel of land changes. Ownership, the ES project might not happen. So they're north that too for the overlay. There's all new there, so I'm actually surprised, which we told them about that, so. We're supposed to be.
One of the leases that come up. Interesting to navigate, and one of their last big projects was in town report, but this is had a conversation with their economic development office, we're trying to cover all the bases. Make sure we get the best result.
All right, I thought it would be good to just have an IDA incentive process refresher. And I want to talk about two things today. One being Hodgson Russ involvement now on all of our pilot projects, and then our actual process and some added steps that we've added in the past few months to help provide more clarification for our clients. So first, we are very happy with having Hodgson Russ handle all of our pilots. So before, they were handling our renewable energy and Kevin was doing our local pilots. But we just realized that we really do need the specialized IDA firms to handle all of our projects. And working with them is wonderful. They have a huge staff, which is why they can charge a lot. But they have a huge staff. The steps in the process for us are very simple and clear. We know exactly what's coming up next and what to expect, and they're very timely. Like, we already have all of the signed documents for Redmark already up on our website. So hopefully soon people can figure that out. Yeah, still trying to guess. The only downfall is that their fees are much higher than what Hampton Carl and Randall charged before. So whereas, Kevin might have charged like $6,000 for pilot, it's now 15 to 18,000 to do a pilot. And this is, they're representing the IDA. And back in the spring, they provided us with a fee schedule. I think we shared that with you all. So the issue that we ran into this fall with Redmark was that he was very upset with the IDA fee, as you would expect. They had originally charged 18,000 and they were able to bump it down to 14,500 because he was like not going to send any paperwork. So we had a meeting with them, and it's something that we have to be thinking about, like with our current UTAP, we want to be able to incentivize local projects and the smaller projects. And with our adaptive reuse policy in place now, it might be maybe a $1 million building project or less. So if you think about the IDA fee and the attorney fees, we just have to really weigh all the options and make sure that it's actually worth it for the client and they're willing to pay those fees up front. Because that's another thing, is like those fees need to be paid one time upfront. So that's where we're at with working with the attorneys. Again, very happy with Hodgson Russ. We really need to centralize IDA attorneys, but we're just gonna have to really weigh whether specific projects are worth those fees. It's our alternative. That is, my understanding is that deal
was much more simplistic. This is coming from Tim Farley. He said it's a bonding deal versus pilot. There are attorneys in Watertown that probably could have handled that versus the bigger, more involved bonding.
There was no bond.
Yes, Tim was talking about it yesterday. He was just saying he thought it was a bonding deal. He thought it was a more simplistic deal.
Right, because we did not end up doing the pilot.
There was no pilot on
Least
that.
and staff on that one. I only know because I was the one that was attorney on the other part.
Well, it's part of that completion and pilot facilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they make a payment and move tax.
Right, but it wasn't as, I guess, involved as some of the bigger projects. He was real mad, I had to be there in that room when that bill came out. And he didn't know about it until the day of closing, he didn't get that bill. So it was real fun,
Yeah.
sitting in that room.
And so like I mean,
Which I will. Brittany will talk a little bit more about the extra documentation we put in place, but. He should have known. It was communicated.
Well, I don't think he knew it was gonna be $18,000.
and yeah, we weren't really sure either, so. That's where this new documentation is coming into play with our process. So again, when we look at our pilot process as a whole, see the cost, please. There are essentially 21 steps to an incentive process, which is why it does take so long. And, you know, there are specific, this is where we're trying to clarify staff roles too, like who's doing what and throughout the whole process. So obviously the application phase, that's going by director of development, aka Cheyenne. So she's the one that's communicating with the client, talking about the incentive, making sure that all the pieces are in place for the application to be ready for review. The second review phase, there's specific parts that are director of development, finance and operations manager, and then IDA attorney, right? And then once we get to the adoption phase, that's more finance and operations and the IDA attorney. Not gonna make you read all of these steps, but it is intensive and it's nice to have this all laid out in front of us. So we've added in this new step number 2, terms and conditions. So once a client submits an application, we have a handle on what the project is. We are providing them with a terms and conditions document that they have to sign off on, because this has happened a number of times where we're having conversations with clients, we tell them what the fees might be or what the timeline might be, but then they're always coming back and saying, well, I didn't know that. Well, we sent it to you in an email or we communicated that with you, so we're just like, let's just improve the process. So this was one that we put together for Cubica for their project. And it really just talks about what is the incentive you're getting, what is the exact project, like what is the IDA involvement, what is the client involvement, timeline for review and approval, proposed terms, fees, you know, our application fee, IDA admin fee, legal fees. What is the client benefit? That's something that we had to actually explain to Jordan Grant a couple of different ways. Is yes, you're paying all these fees up front, but here's what you're saving over 10 years. And then they are essentially agreeing and signing off on this. They are going to sign off on this before we even bring it to you guys, bring it to finance committee. We're hoping that this just brings clarity to everyone. And as we want to bring projects that are ready to you guys. We don't want to be confused, and we don't want the client to be confused when we're having the board review. So, any thoughts, comments?
When you look at terms, yeah, we would be.
Say that again.
What are the terms of development, the idea?
It's 1% of the total project costs.
Okay, and they have to pay, right?
So that's an actual policy that we have in place. This board, we just reapproved our fee last year sometime.
Okay, where do we get that 1% number from? Is that just general across board IDAs?
Yeah, yeah.
What are these?
They're charging 2?
So, I mean, again, this is where we get into energy pilots versus like a local business, right?
Yeah.
And the idea is that the IDA has to administer this pilot for the term of the pilot, if it's 15, 20, 25, 30 years.
Right.
And so there needs to be a staff person here,
I get it.
25 years from now, to receive that. The check from the company and distribute it to the 3 tax jurisdictions.
Yeah.
And. You know, that's, and there's a balancing act there, right, of. That also. If. Things are done in a. Smart way and. Planned out, that's also. The funds that we can reinvest in our community and build off of, right? It doesn't just have to sit there for.
Right.
To write someone's paycheck 25 years from now, but it's reinvesting that and turning it over.
Yeah, I wasn't, I understand the purpose of it. All I was thinking was, is it a tiered system? So for example, the local project, right? A smaller project, who could use the help. Talk about the interest of $16,000 now, could be used, could you make that fee at 0.5% and use that interest payment for this person? If it's at a dollar amount that is hurtful, put it in a different way, rather than a big energy company who has no problem paying. Right, so could it be, it makes sense to have a tiered system like that, and a bank account sitting funded with interest account to help with that? Just a thought.
Right, it's something to look at, and that's something that as part of the contract with Natural Lewis. You've seen the spreadsheet before, we spread those payments out for the 15 or 10 or 30 years, and it's. Like $2,000 a year that I use.
Well, I know it's not a lot.
So it's not a lot.
Right.
Also, we do the cost benefit very early in the process.
Yeah.
I do it for things. I can do it. Do it very early in the process to see if it's even worth it for a small client like this, like, we're doing that behind the scenes, I'm making sure that I can go to bed at night knowing that I'm not ripping somebody off.
Yeah.
So this is just a document that's making it more clear to them very early in the process.
Back to my earlier question about what are our options and kind of talking about what you mentioned, a tiered system. Is there a way that we could identify like a threshold where is it possible to follow our previous process with a local attorney and the IDA doing more of the preparation for that pilot and administration in a way that makes it more affordable for a small business? I understand the Hodgkins Russ option for these large energy projects, but is that a way? And rather than saying you charge them 0.5%, perhaps it remains the same, but they're gaining in the administrative costs of the pilot. Not administrative, legal, sorry.
That's where I am too, because I'm afraid if it's an energy company, then whatever. But if it's a small client, they're gonna meet their attorney, which is Tim Farley. He's gonna tell them not to go to Lewis County IDA because of that, because there are attorneys that can handle it. When you're doing the more simplistic thing versus the crazy energy stuff.
I think my question is, do we have the capacity with the staff we have to support? We were.
We weren't preparing documentation internally, and I think there's a lot of risk in that. I think with the transition act campaign with Colonel Randall, you made us not trying to throw you under the bus at all. But with the transition, yeah, with the transition, we didn't, I think it was a mutual, there's not the capacity there, so.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. I'm not saying to use our local council, I'm saying there are other options that are much more affordable than that. When there's no, because there was no mortgage on the property, no anything like that, it was literally paper.
And it changed from the day before closing, because I think Tim talked them down from what they were going to do. Just being involved in it from a different perspective. there was a lot of emails going back and forth, no one was agreeing to anything. It was, a bit of a cluster.
And that was part of it, like that's always not directly, right, when it's not clear, because at the very beginning, they had the box that they were looking for more, you could put in tax exemption too, which adds a layer.
But they didn't have a mortgage.
It was very weird. We were supposed to be doing a transfer and doing like a straight pilot. So it was just a mess. It was, quite honestly, Ellen was a bit of a mess. So, and he was not happy. It was not great. And then I got yelled at.
Do you think it's, I mean, obviously these energy companies, they have people on staff who understand. And you have a local business person.
I think that would be helpful. I would definitely not put TBD for attorney fees.
No, this was a draft. This was a
Right, so
draft.
I'm just saying like, reach out and just ask how much you think it's gonna, an attorney thinks it's gonna cost, what they're gonna go with, and make sure that number's on there, and maybe add another $1,000.
Yeah.
It's better to come in lower than higher, but that was. And then Joe wasn't, cause we were told that it would be too confusing for everybody. So it was just really strange. And then so he had to mail the documents all out back to them for them to put together and then have them sent back. That really didn't make him feel great either, to spend $150 in documents. Mhm.
So this is, so. I think this is a really good discussion, I think there's a lot of things here. First of all, we spent the morning picking on our accounting firm and it's the same. But a lot of this is the same, as the question is how much truly simpler is a small pilot versus a large one, because because of all the required steps of the process. And we've had challenges in the past with the way agreements were written up. That's come back to bite us. And this isn't a new issue. We had a very local business several years ago when attorney fees were a lot cheaper and everything was a lot cheaper, that threw a hissy fit about the administrative costs and stuff. And that's, again, if you can lay out the cost benefit, again, it's a very straightforward job of doing. And then it's up to the business. Ironically, it used to be tiered the other way when these renewable energy projects first came out, they were getting a lower fee because they were such a big dollar. And a few years ago, we said, well, why are we giving them, they don't deserve special treatment, and we made it 1% across the board. Is 1% right?
I think if it's a fair number, it's a fair number, I just didn't know if it could help a smaller business more by being.
No, if we're not here to, if our programs can't help our intended stakeholders, then what's the point, right? But there's part of it is figuring out what's in our control and what's not.
Yeah.
And
I think you made a great point, even with smaller projects, the pilot, it was basically the same, but we still have to do the same type of paperwork, so. And obviously, they're applying for a pilot for a reason, cost benefits over time, and I mean. There's still a cost benefit that's laid out on step 2 and communicated with them right from the get-go, so. I think that just makes a lot of sense with that, and it's the same, the paperwork's the same.
I didn't realize that it's the exact same thing, no matter what.
Right.
Well,
So I mean, there's
yeah,
also the same.
yeah. I read it.
And, with communicating it right off the bat, it shows that the cost of having this, that's the way I look at it.
Or it's more affordable to go to a local attorney than for smaller projects. I guess that's the consideration that I'm.
Yeah, if you have, I don't know who you're thinking of. If you have a contact for
Okay. But there are some commercial attorneys
a
and
local attorney that can do hometown pilots, what you like to call them.
Well, Jefferson County has an IDA, they have an attorney up there that they use for it, so that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah, he's with Berkeley Day and everything.
So I've been moving forward, sure, isn't
we can,
it? Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
but,
Totally agree that this is a good step.
yeah, this is awesome.
Excellent.
And again, it's, you know, having all this laid out so someone can't claim that they did it. And so, right, is,
And they have to sign this in front of us.
Yes.
Like they're referring back to one document versus the application and.
but I think, and I don't,
Reminding person.
I didn't wanna imply that every pilot was exactly the same, but. Determining. A lot of them, they have a lot of the same requirements, it's not to say one's not gonna be more complicated than another.
Right.
But. There's a baseline of requirements that are. Even across the board. And the other thing is sometimes a small one, smaller projects, smaller dollar amounts don't pull less complicated. Because of, you know, whether, because of the business's finances, there's also, there's, so.
And especially modern education to the customer.
Right, especially on the back end, it's like, right now, I've probably got 10 calls from Florida. What do I do with the sales tax and form, like what form do I need now? That kind of thing, that's not gonna happen, energy company. Not the one's better than the other, just. There's a different level of handling.
So I think it's. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's different hurdles with the huge. But. And I mean, right, and but I don't think we wanna mistake a smaller project for always being simpler.
So maybe that's where. Develop a process to figure out something to go by. Right.
Yeah, we can make
With
the
the
right
right
estimates,
Yeah.
I mean, you can make more estimates.
What's gonna go to electric later?
Wasn't like the Red Bar meat, that was gonna be a straight pilot with a deed into the IDA. And several of the other documents that we usually do, but literally the day before it got changed. Because I was like, where's the deed? Who's preparing the deed? I'm a different lender on this. And then we get to the table and it's like, oh yeah, we changed everything yesterday.
And that was earlier?
Yeah. Cause he was working with, I forget who it is, Mr. Canada. And he just, he wasn't very happy, Mr. Farley wasn't very happy. And then finally got them to agree to just do lease situation with the equipment or whatever he's doing there, but changed the day before. And that's, so I mean, I'm sure their attorney view is justified, because they had to redo and change and do the documents, but. That one's like, so maybe you don't know, I guess is my point, you don't know what's gonna happen, right? But maybe that's also go to your attorney before you do this or have them involved in this process so that. You can decide what's best for you at the beginning to grow.
There's this, I'm not picking on any individual or business or anything, but the bottom line is. The reason we're doing this is because we're doing a lot of the work for someone, there's a lot of, right, if. You know, you could be. A bit more harsh about it and say if someone comes in without all their ducks in a row, well, then that's on them as a business owner. Right, right, and so, and I come from a place where. We're in the education and support business. And so, we can provide that help and documents like this. Weighing it out is helpful, but you still. Can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink, so.
Right, and that's something, like. Bringing all the services together, that's something we're really thinking about for the future is, we wanna work with clients who are ready and willing. And they understand the process. We've worked with so many clients that they're not ready, they don't understand the process. And it's been a struggle, so it's, for on our end, it's about setting up our internal process, which thank you, Trish, she has helped us immensely with internal process. If we are clear, then they're clear. So that's what we continue to improve all our processes so that it's easier on us, easier for them.
And there's this long-standing pervasive attitude that there's just handcuffs everywhere, so.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't matter if I was working for the county extension office or being involved in this, there's this attitude out there that. There's this misconception that there's all this free money and so got this and you know, these programs, again. Should always come from a place that we're trying to provide a benefit to businesses, otherwise we don't have a purpose. But there's a difference between providing a benefit and handouts. So something to remember for your meeting later today. So we have to, you know, but that just persists in the public. And then there's certain people that get upset if they don't get a handout because there's this misconception that other costs, right? So that's where having these cost benefit analysis on all of our projects is saying you have skin in the game from this, but here's how it is structured to help your business take this step.
Yeah. So we'll continue to fine tune this process, but appreciate the feedback. It's a good conversation. Okay, want to talk a little bit about property and site developments. Shai, you want to walk through our property plan briefly?
Yeah, so this was the draft that I presented to the Naturally Lewis Property and Site Development Committee. They had some input that I haven't updated yet, but we'll get there before our December meeting. Yeah, I just, as a preface to the conversation, this was the visual I put in place. Like, we all want economic development to be very straightforward, and you do this and this, like these are the impacts. When in fact it's nothing like that. Like, this is a very clean version of what it actually might look like, but everything's just a single web of this might happen and then that might happen and everything's impacting everything else. We talked about some of the trends we've seen in property and site development, some of our successes where we're doing a good job, where we're seeing some hurdles and challenges, especially in manufacturing, large manufacturing specifically, or our mid-level manufacturers. Shipping costs being high, our housing shortage, there's a host of challenges, and we've done a really great job in the past few years, especially on small business startups, the entrepreneurship, the downtown infill, but recognizing that we have room to expand that portfolio and try to address some of these bigger things. We talked about community support and trying to identify our communities on a scale like this. I didn't shame anybody by putting like Lionsdale and the adamantly opposed end. And then I think a lot of our communities are kind of in the middle, in the cooperative side. Maybe some like getting up to supportive, but we really need to drive up to motivated communities and really work in those motivated communities rather than trying to change the minds of the opposed right away. The low-hanging fruit is let's do some stuff in motivated places. So high level plan, pick off the low-hanging fruit. We have an initiative to develop a track that we want plan, and that's really just finally figuring out what is it that we as communities want to see developed? And matchmaking where people wanna work, where they're most happy working with what we can export. So as I saw on an earlier slide, we're not ideally located to ship things necessarily. So what is it that we can ship out and bring capital back in with? And this is 25 to 27, so this is looking out the next 3 years. We want to work on 9 site developments spread across Lewis County, so that's a mix of new sites and adaptive reuse. So that's maybe some green sites, and definitely some adaptive reuse or revitalization projects. That's 3 a year, that's working on, that's not 9 completed projects in 3 years. The sites that we are looking at, and I think the committee had a couple bullets to add to this, but they would need to be available to be low hanging fruit. We don't wanna try to grab a property away from somebody who's not interested in giving it to us. Or giving it to the developer. Located in supportive or better communities, we talked about that, high traffic areas or highly impactful to their neighborhood, so let's do some things that make impact, not something that's on a back road that isn't necessarily going to have a big impact. We need to focus on beautifying and selling the remaining portion of the Lions Falls Mill property. And in doing that, we're gaining a lot of expertise on environmental needs. We're working with neighboring counties on getting more involved in that world. Clarifying roles with Lewis County, actually in the course of the meeting, some stuff came up that with Lewis County planning that I think will be exciting to work through on the group managing projects side. And then partnering and to educate and encourage the less than supportive communities. So we're not completely ignoring those communities that are falling on that end of the spectrum. There's some thought that that should be a higher bullet. I'm not sure that's low hanging fruit necessarily. I'm not sure that's low hanging fruit necessarily, but it's fruit that we
Bring
can.
parts of water.
It's kind of the two-pronged approach. We try to educate a bit, but also we try to do some projects so they see that things can get done.
Success stories get people's attention too.
We're really gonna play into that jealousy thing. So the goals, sites and more sites, so that's kind of where we fall short a lot of the time is if we have a business that wants to do something, we don't necessarily have a place they can walk into, we have. Sites that need 3 years worth of work and environmental remediation, and that's not gonna attract people. So we, out of that 9 that we want to be working on in the next 3 years, we wanna get 5 market ready and turnkey sites. Again, a mix of green sites, adaptive reuse. We want to over that portfolio of sites break even or have a positive return on investment or cost benefit. So we need to look at the job creation and knowing we can't break naturally Lewis or the IDA or the LCDC. We need to focus on sites that aren't going to do that. Again, increasing number of supportive communities, increasing the number of commercial redevelopers, so we're gonna put some numbers to that. I could make a list, or I can't make a list of developers I can email or call today and get on a meeting with. So we know that number, it's just, let's double that number. And we're working on a grant with a neighboring county to try to have some funding come in that would help us address studies and surveys on environmental remediation or sites that need that, so that would be both public or sites that we would own or privately owned sites, so to kind of get some of that base work done, so we know the path forward. And this slide had a lot of conversation in that meeting, especially the Lewis County project. This is what Naturally Lewis is doing, and then what we're asking the different entities that we relate to do for us, with us, how those partnerships work. This needs a bit of defining, especially with Lewis County planning. I think there's some transition in roles that will happen there. And I think some transition in how we look at things, so we've been sort of desperate to get people to develop things, and that's required us to do a lot of hand holding. And us is a very general term, Cassie does a lot of planning. So we need to have a balance of those projects that we really, really wanna get done, and we know that they're gonna take a lot of hand holding and start to drive that direction in having developers who can take a project and run with it without us or with minimal support. So balancing that out, and defining what that looks like, so roles are clear, pace of projects is clear. Questions, comments on
So this is the IDA design, and we're asking the IDA to help us with this, with the tax incentives. Property development in general and property ownership. So, we are the entity that essentially has the funds to own and lease properties or owns and sells properties, so. We will be providing with those tools over the next 3 years.
Yes. I appreciate the way this is laid out. Just a couple just thoughts. One, back to, this is, we talked about this eternally about our location and transportation and stuff, but if we get back to the fact that our main resource here is our natural resources and, again, ask like, is it what's more efficient to ship out of Lewis County? A load of logs or a truckload of coal? What's more efficient to try a load of raw milk or a load of cream cheese, right? What has a greater economic return? What ships more efficiently? I still think we need to play that up as our advantage in this area. We're not located right on the thruway or right on Route 81, but the resources we have here ship more efficiently as a final product than a raw material, and that benefits the community by having that increase in the value added here, not so much up, right? So, and I'm not saying you're not, but just the way that was listed as like a challenge, I think we need to, it is a challenge. I'm not saying it's not, and we should ignore it, it's just we need to list it on both sides of the equation.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, the last statement is, let's face it, our developers and those groups are gonna take advantage of every bit of hand holding they can get to, whether they're actually capable of doing it on their own or not. So I think that'll be an interest, that's always gonna be an interesting balancing act of when we are motivated to get a project done and how much hand holding we do that our partner in the project actually needs versus is just letting us do because it saves them.
It's just very good at things.
I know we're running short on time, so we can address this later, but I just wanna bring it up. In Brittany's notes, the IDA notes, you mentioned that Shiva meeting with communities. And my question is like, how are we prioritizing that outreach? Is it like, is there a strategy to it, or are we canvassing all communities and then taking them?
Starting with the villages, the more motivated villages,
How do we know the mood of the villages?
I wanna use them all, but some of them have engaged with us more already than others, so that's where we're starting.
I might also think that infrastructure might come into that some, I mean. And location, I guess I'd say, I mean, you're not gonna develop much in Montague because there's just no water and sewer, so.
It makes sense to start with those, because that's where you got your
Residents, neighbor.
communities.
Well, this gets back to, so we shouldn't let, history completely cloud our judgment, right? But part of the challenge is we've had some of the biggest roadblocks by trying to utilize the existing infrastructure that's in place. And if we
In villages that are not cooperative.
if we think about. I mean, it's not an overnight process, but if we think about some of the resources from the state and stuff on developing infrastructure. It may be a better path to empower a community that doesn't have infrastructure, but is on the supportive side to
Right.
to get the infrastructure and it adds years to the process, but trying to.
My thought is, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, like, we're strategically, our board is spread out across the county. So in this outreach, it may be beneficial to reach out to the board member in that area to kind of join that conversation. They may not be directly in that village, but they're in that community. And sometimes having that advocacy on those conversations, leadership and municipalities shift, change. There's new people, and what's always been perceived as a stubborn community may be more receptive, especially if you have.
Anyways,
I like that idea because we're trying not to just meet with like the mayor or something, because we know that people who are willing to serve on municipal board are the motivated people, or tend to be more motivated. What does your Joe Schmo community member want? I might not be the same thing, so we need to get a gauge on that.
and the other thing is about like what's success, so. In this, I mean, obviously goals are important, but by 2027. Like, if one of these goals is identified, but infrastructure is in the process, well, to me. That's a success to be celebrated, if in 3 years from now. That business isn't built yet, but this community has brand new infrastructure because of this process. And facilitates that, the timelines, I think, and we have to define. Kind of make sure we have are clearly communicating what the definition of success is. Because there's been a lot of gains made that I don't think are being perceived as successes right now. And that's a problem. Because everyone wants the quick fix.
Yeah, the way, so this is part of our strategic plan for the next 3 years, and the way we have some of those initiatives laid out, it's gonna be so much easier for us to be able to track what we're working on and track the successes. Because we are trying to put numbers to some of the initiatives. So. I think this gives us a much clearer path, again, clarifying processes, clarifying the plan, who does what. Plans in place, ready to go, we know what we're doing. Any other questions on this plan? So just had 2 other properties to discuss,
So the color red building, we need to get rid of that name, it's our office building. We submitted a project for the DRO Revitalization Initiative with the Village of Belleville. And that project is moving forward to be included in the strategic investment plan. So our best estimates right now are about $1.7 million to fix that siding facade, all the brickwork and whatnot outside. Do something on the second and third floor that's complete infrastructure with redevelopment, because there's no heat up there, there's no electricity. The beam sawed off, it's a mess if you've seen that, so it's about a 1.7. We have that, that's great.
We've learned,
Usually it's just pigeons.
I was gonna say, we've learned that there's quite a bit of structural integrity pigeon poop.
So that project is moving forward in the DRI process. The strategic investment plan will be submitted to the state, in December, and then the state will probably announce who gets funded like April, May next year. So that's moving forward with that funding, and we would like to apply for the topography revitalization grant for that project as well. It's about a 12-year return on investment for the IDA in that project, because I mean, I wouldn't suggest that we take on this project without the grant funding. But that drives it down to about $300,000-$400,000 that IDA needs to put into the building. And that's a very conservative estimate. It's saying that we only rent out like 3 office spaces upstairs. It's not even taking into account 3rd floor, could be studios, to 1-bedroom apartments. I think there's a lot more potential to drive that down closer to like 8 years ROI. But a much needed project that we'll continue to look for your support on as we move forward. We'll look for more grants, there's opportunities with MBRC.
Right, so that's continuing to move forward with that project.
I mean, we would love us some big team on, we would like to do it and accept the grant funding, we probably make that, but in lieu of that, we'd like to move forward.
Yeah, we've tried multiple developers. And then the Harrisville Community Bank building, Herb had asked me to put this back on the list for consideration, so we talked, I don't know, maybe last year about the IDA potentially purchasing and leasing the building. I don't really know where we're at with that sort of scenario, but I think given Shy's property and property plan, it's in like conversations with Con and Diana, it's something that we can evaluate on why they feel motivated, do they really want us to do something like that? So Carla, I don't know if you have any other thoughts.
Well, I mean, of course, the building's sat there for over a year now. You're starting to see it, it's not occupied. Community Bank's done nothing with it, I mow the lawn, that's it. It's right in our business district, so, I don't wanna see it become, a dilapidated building, for the next 5 years. And I think it fits in with your property plan, with developing property and making it turnkey, or, maybe not, maybe it fits under some other criteria. But, they were asking 140 for it when they first went up for sale. What they call it,
It's
90,
now at 95.
at 95, but we did the appraisal with them at 50. So, I mean, there's a pretty big gap there, but, I guess I was thinking maybe we could put it in purchase offer.
We could suggest, what the cogent they did in Myers Falls, the business leads the community, they gift the building to the company. They sense they jumping shit on the thing.
I mean, I can see something creative with community thing, where they get to look good in the process and partner with them. But
Because the community was pretty active, I mean, business was excited, but, I think it could be a good win. With your property plan, it could be, something small in the community. A quick, easy win, because it's not in that out of shape, but it's gonna get there, if it stays another year and no one's doing anything with it, it could require a lot of work to bring it up.
Yeah.
To go, so, I was just thinking it'd be an easy win, and it'd be our, which also, success stories.
Right.
the safe school.
Mhm.
Is the safe school.
Yeah, I got it.
So supposedly there's somebody that buys safes, so, and I heard it's worth like $60,000.
There you go.
Oh, it's not.
That'll work.
Was out there.
Yes. So I mean, there you go, there's a return on your investment there, getting it out of there would be everything. But, you know, who knows, you could get creative and use it.
Oh.
It's their.
Escape room, have a bank.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Climate control.
Look at what's around, is there,
Look at family.
apartment?
And stone shed. You have to.
Well, it's not, I mean, I think, not that we don't have any information on it, Stuart's been keeping us up to date for several months, but. I feel like we still could. Try to sketch out a more concrete plan. But
Let me put a case together and reach out to community bank to see if I can work anything creative, they've got decent partners through the flooding, so. I'll bring a plan for the December meeting.
So great.
We wait till January so we can actually hit my metrics.
Any other thoughts on properties? Okay. Updates on projects, Cuba just wanted to inform that they obviously were not moving forward with the installment sale. And I believe the company, like they just decided to move forward with the project and pay for it themselves. So.
What was the reason they didn't want to give the installment thing?
Because they felt that it was just like, all we were offering was a low interest loan. And they didn't like that the IDAs, with the other title of the equipment for.
Or on that sample that showed that they would save 8% of cost, right?
The equipment, they actually are able to purchase without tax, because that's a exempt piece of equipment, so. We couldn't save them by using our exempt status on that front. They, without going into too much detail for time's sake, they really were only looking for grants. They have the resources at the corporate level to just purchase it. They're not interested in traditional financing through a bank because they don't be interested, aren't interested in the programs that we have that we. And then it's associated with that, you're not interested in grants or.
And we're able to spend $160,000 from their state.
Yes.
Towards the project.
And they're not connected to lose any jobs, nothing more than they're gonna be able to pay for a refund.
No, what it does is it delays some of the other capital projects that they would like to do, right, so they tie up capital and this $760,000 project versus being able to do other things that aren't compliance related.
But that's where we could find grants, right, to help and
Yes.
not incentivize that, and to get a
100%.
return on the investment anyway.
And then storage.
Snow Ridge needs to buy another room. And they asked me to do just a gut check with this board, because we have one of their roomers on an installment sale. Program right now, so. They would like me to do a gut check on whether we would like to own another roomer. So I'm putting that out for you, I think we have a couple scenarios I can try to piece some things together. But it was about 160,000. The previous one. They've been excellent, I think, on it.
They're making some pretty substantial investments in snowmaking equipment and stuff. So this would be, it's good, but this would be another investment. Sort of,
This is kind of a must do for them, their current their current equipment is not reliable.
The water issue. Because of the temperature making snow.
Well, that's where the snow making.
Oh, the snow making and the grooming,
Groom,
yeah,
yeah,
so I guess.
Well, the one groomer was damaged in her tornado.
The one that we hold the.
No, it wasn't, it was their other.
So the one we hold was brand new and is still in good working order. They had a second one that was older and then it was already older and less reliable and then had substantial damage during the tornado. And running one is hard to keep up with stuff and for the size of their facility.
How much is left on it?
What's that?
What's like how much is left to be paid off?
20 approximately.
On the night, the one we own, only 20's left?
Okay.
Off from 160.
I would be wrong, this is why I never estimate, I haven't looked at it. Yeah, I'm so wrong, who's 20? No one.
That's why I look at.
I can't see, what's it say?
98.
90, okay.
Right, and both of these projects are really, they come to us, I mean, everybody wants free money. But a lot of the interest we're seeing most recently is because bank rates are so high, interest rates are so high. So they either have a gap or they just can't just paying 8-12%. So they come to us looking for a better option.
And into that, if you've got what is supposed to be a reliable customer, if we can earn 5 or 6% on a lease, that's better than the 4% you might get in the bank, or 3%.
Right, and given that Cubica is not pursuing the $760,000 that we might have to outlay, we do have room to do that. We would. Yeah, we want to make sure that we don't overextend ourselves.
That already, yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know what buckets of money you use for this, but if you've got money in the bank, so if it's a money you're able to put into a project like this. Might be a better use of the money if it's a reliable customer.
Something negative on the side of there, you would rather own a rumor and install at that better resale value than rumor. Yes.
Seems
that out there?
Seems like it'd be easier to resell.
Yeah, that's my voice.
Up north. So can I put a face together for that for December, that maybe has some alternative pieces of financing to bring that down a bit.
I think, it's always. We have funds and there's always this discussion about. The merits of the project and sitting on those funds because something better might come along or. Using them now, Eric's point, it's like we have this opportunity, we can help someone now. Do you take that route versus inaction, essentially, because what might happen down.
Alright, last on the agenda, IDA comptroller audit, did everyone have a chance to speak with our auditor Dave on the phone?
Yes. You caught me completely off guard.
So I just got an email from him yesterday that he has one more question and then he's looking to schedule the. Audit findings meeting with Shy and I. Which then after they schedule that meeting with us to tell us everything that's going to be in the report, they will then. Write the report and then, I don't know how long that process is.
Do they present that to us as a board or is it just?
They do like
Sure.
an exit, I guess I don't know the exact process. They do like an exit interview or exit. Meeting. I don't know, I can clarify with me. But things that we expect that we are going to get dinged on, discrepancies with some of the pilot admin fees from many years ago where, like the Otis admin fee, for example, in the paperwork, it said it's 20,000, but in QuickBooks, it was 22,000, and there's no like paper trail as to why there was that increase, so there's a couple of those, just, yeah, some questions on where numbers came from, and there's really no paper trail for them. We think there might be, they might expect the IDA to ask for some of the money back from Naturally Lewis. If that's the case, then we're gonna ask to do it over a specific timeline. What were there any other notable?
I think those were the biggest things. They really like to pick apart the Naturally Lewis step service contracts and make sure we were doing to the T what the contract said, so a good opportunity for us to tighten those up and make sure we spell everything out, there's nothing left to general understanding, so.
No, the opposite. The contract, you want the contract to be vague, so you can do whatever you want. Sorry, my
Well,
opinion.
yeah, but for example, like in the contract, it said that we were going to, Naturally Lewis was gonna fail the IDA on a quarterly basis, and we ended up doing the one-time payment. And that was just an oversight of like, we just missed that in the contract, so they're gonna ding us on that as well.
Right, I think a lot of it we've already got processes in place going back to the incentive process. We already closed those loops on it, the project develops and changes over the course of the pilot negotiation or approval process, and cost increase or decrease, and it's been 2 years since the original cost benefit. We already closed that loop for the most part by updating that, so current state, we have all of the documentation of changes. We hardly even have computers that one of these. So, I don't know, I thought actually it was a good process.
Yeah, I'm seeing it as an opportunity. There's no right way to do this. There's no right way to write the contract and figure out what the fee is. They were fine with the 90%. The 90% of admin fees spread out. They're fine with that. They're just making sure that if that's what we're putting in our contract, we're following it to a T. So they will tear it apart, but it was the first time we've ever done this. So we'll keep you all posted. You know, Auditor Dave was a great guy. I got to know Dave very well, and no one else.
Great, shy, thoughts.
Keep it on, reading,
Cool.
watching this.
Yeah. Hi, Dave.
We love
Yeah. His sister-in-law's name. Actor Sunson, or was it Actor Sunson, Bill?
you. He sounds like a character from Seinfeld. It's hilarious.
Yes. All right.
Good question, can we do CDs as part of our finances?
Mhm.
We can, well, looking at the amount of money we've got and the liquidity we have, it probably is a bad idea to lock some of it up, or a big part of it up. You could do 3, 6, 9 in a year, so they keep coming up, but this way we know a predictable stream before another rate cut in December. Just food for thought.
I can look into it, or we can look into it, the rates on government have this advantageous, so we can look into it.
No, it's not, so it might be the same as a checking account, it just won't get cut, it'll be locked in for a year.
Yeah,
Right, assuming that rates are gonna be.
Oh, they're gonna go down.
Yeah, right, that's been a shift in mindset, right, because stuff was so low for so long and now. We're on the other side of that.
And even if we have to break one, it's usually like a month or two worth of interest to break it, and we have so much of it, we would never need this much liquidity sitting in checking for savings. For money market either.
Alright, anything else?
Yeah.
Is it? Like putting it in the CD, it's not gonna make as much as it's in the NY class. And like you said,
Unless NY class, that's its rates.
Yeah, that's
see
not,
what
a-
you're
that's not a set rate, it fluctuates with prime.
Right.
But yeah,
But it is traditionally. Even before,
higher than,
higher than CD.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree that it's worth looking into for sure.
If it's something that's variable, which it is, which means it can go up and down, then to have a predictable stream over a year, knowing full well that the rate cuts, it's already happened. Another one in December.
Yep.
It just makes sense to have a predictable stream and have it locked in. But you won't get higher for more than a year, because the bank also knows.
Right.
that it-
It's not going to happen before December because of the.
Yes, yeah, December is slated to be Fed rate cut.
Alright. Good discussion, anything else?
Just upcoming events, Natural Rose Membership Awards Night is on the 21st. Love for you guys to attend if you can. It'll be a fun night out on the town. We're doing cocktail hour at Jazz and then the ceremony at Town Hall Theater and after party at the Jazz. So, that's in a couple of weeks. And then we'll send some information out soon on our Christmas party on December 18th or 19th at the second place. So, what time do you guys say?
And please consider sponsoring membership awards night.
What was that?
Please consider sponsoring membership awards night.
How do you do that?
Right online, when you buy your ticket, there's options for 5 different sponsorship levels.
Oh, like it's monetary donations?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's the 2 days then?
The 21st for the awards night and then December 19th at second place. And that's for all boards and committees involved with natural rose. And a guest session.
We need. Bringing.
Yeah. I'm just advertisers going
What day is that? Friday?
Thursday.
First.
Mhm.
There. That were my head.
Anything else?
Nah,
Motion to adjourn,
I'm in.
again. Second by her, all in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. This is so